All right. So for single women, it's like, what industries do we go after for like husbands? Like, what do you recommend dating for like that make good husbands and work well with a family?
I say tradesmen. Tradesmen would be my number one pick because they never are unemployed. I mean, tech jobs are great and some of them are really high paying, but we've seen times where like Google or these big tech corporations have to lay off like a ton of people
Hmm.
or their job becomes obsolete. If you can find a tradesman who can get a good trade job, I mean, my husband I mean, he would not only never be unemployed, but when he got good at mechanical engineering, which is, and he's working on like factory equipment. So like food production companies,
Hmm.
factories, he would go in there and fix the giant, humongous machinery that's in there that has like robotic components and stuff like that. That's what he did. And he would not only never be out of a job, but he'd be at a good paying job and have other companies trying to like recruit him to their company and offer him more. So once he got a decent level of skill there,
Hmm.
he could kind of negotiate what he wanted. He got to a point where he can make really good money and negotiate a really good package. And he could do third shift if he felt like that was better for the family. So he could be around a little more during the day. Or maybe he'd want to do a first shift job, but there was like a lot of options for hours for him to work too.
Hmm.
And then he would get overtime and the overtime pay. So if you're making like $35 an hour and you're getting time and a half for 10 hours, that's
Hmm.
a nice paycheck. You know what I mean? So
That's so
I feel like,
funny. I've always wanted to marry an engineer. I swear, I've always said that.
yeah. Yeah, mechanical engineers, like the guys who are in there building stuff, those guys, not only that, but it's like they're really handy around the house. They tend to be very
I have
masculine.
always said that. All my
Yeah,
brothers are engineers, like all of them.
yeah. Yeah, that's or even like there's some auto mechanics or guys who work on farm equipment, things like that. Those guys tend to be really solid because they're doer types, you know,
Right.
and they're gonna always have a job and they're always gonna make good money. And they're probably gonna be able to get jobs in areas that are more affordable versus if your husband is like, you know, a lawyer or a tech guy, you might have to live in Silicon Valley or New York City or something, and then your options are more limited.
Hmm.
So
Wow. Wow, this has been so insightful. Like, this has actually been so helpful because I think as women, like, we're just always told that you need two incomes. And you're
yep.
telling me, or you either need two incomes or you need to find a guy that makes two incomes. But you're saying that's not true. You just need to move to a suburb or the country, find a guy
Yeah.
that makes 40 to 50,000 a year, and you can raise 4 to 5 kids on that. If he's in the
Yeah.
city, 70 to 80, but it's
Yeah.
still, you can still kind of figure it out if you,
Mhm.
because I talked to one woman who raised 10 kids on 10,000 a year, and her husband did work in the city, but they just lived 2 hours from the city. And she said
Oh,
it was
whoa.
hard because she didn't like see him much, but it was just like a sacrifice they made where she grew like she did exactly what you did, grew the food, a little bit more so than you, like,
Yeah. I
you know.
would guess at 10,000 a year, you'd have to be like really homesteading. But I think I think that's another thing we tell modern women that is so detrimental to their chances of staying married is that if you want a good provider, you cannot have this idea in your head that every day he's got to spend a lot of time with you and give you tons of attention and you have to have a date night every single week. Like when we always think of it as like, we call it like when we were in the trenches. So there's like 5 kids, 11 and under, and they're running around and things are kind of chaotic and crazy. And there's a lot going on and it's just busy all the time. Those years, if we could watch a documentary and like eat Chinese takeout together, that was our date. But that was fine with me. I just
Mm,
wanted, like, if I got that little time with him, I was super happy. And
mm,
he made it quality time. If you want like a high achieving guy who can provide a lot of resources, don't have the mindset that you're going to get like tons of attention and tons of time. And the higher status man you get, the less attention you're going to get. And that's paradoxical for most women, right? Because the women who want these alpha high achiever type of guys, these high status men, are usually the type of women who need lots and lots and lots of attention and validation. And so they're never happy. So I always tell people
wow.
you gotta pick one a little bit. If you want this successful man, you'll get your time and attention with him, but it's not going to be tons of it, because they have demands on them from their work, from people around them. Like my husband is the guy that everybody comes to for advice about things, help with stuff, because he's so capable. He's so good at everything he does that his time has a lot of demands. So now that the kids are older and he doesn't have to put in an insane amount of hours all the time, we're spending more time. And this is another thing to think about for moms that I would say, if you want to stay home with your kids, you can do more once they get older. So now my youngest is 11. My oldest one is 22. I have more time. That's why I can stream with you. I can write a book. I can do this research. I can do some things on the side, because now I do have a little bit of time. But just understand that there's different phases of your life. And if you want to have a career, I would tell you, have your kids when you're young. That's when your fertility window is. And having babies is a young woman's game. It is hard to be getting up all night with a crying baby when you're in your late 30s, let me tell you. So have your kids young, and then take your time to think about what you want to do and have some other things you can do when you're older. My last child will move out when I'm 50. I might have another 20 years that I can do whatever, that I could work or have a career if I really wanted to. For me, I want to be a very involved grandma, and I want to be helpful to my kids when they have their kids. So I'm probably not going to have a full-time career, but you do have that option. So I think we just give women backwards advice, telling them to build a career and do college first and then have kids after their fertility window.
I never thought about not going to college. Like, I didn't even think it was an option, to be honest.
I know. I had that beat into my head too, because I was a smart kid. And so it was always like, oh, of course you're going to college. It wasn't even questioned. It was like, that's what you're doing. And I had my first daughter when I was 20, and I was like, I'm not doing college. And everyone around me lost their minds. It was like, you're never going to be anything. You're never going to go anywhere. You're going to like, I had people who were my friends say things like, oh, it's such a shame you never did anything with your life. You just had kids. And I was like, excuse me. Like, of course, now it's not like that. And now that they're older and they're going off into the world and they're these solid, happy, really functional, not mentally ill human beings that I've put out into the world. Of course, that's a wonderful thing. That's way more worth my time. It's a much better investment for me and for society that I did that, because I could have worked some corporate job, but nobody would give a shit about it by the time I retire. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and it's almost...
I want to stop telling women that if you don't have a career, that you ain't shit and you're a loser. That's just such a terrible thing to tell women.
They want to know about the cost of giving birth.
So this is where I might get into some trouble. Birth didn't used to be a medicalized thing. For all of human history, it was like you had a midwife, or your doctor would come to your house, and most births were home births. Unless you have a specific condition. There are some people, like they have a high-risk pregnancy or something like that, they may need a hospital medical birth. But for the average healthy woman, you should strongly consider doing home births. There's a million resources on them out there. You can find women who have recorded their home birth and have it out there on the internet if you want to see what that's like. But you can get a midwife and do a home birth for next to nothing. If you don't need a medicalized birth. If you do need to give birth in a hospital, or that's what you want for whatever reason, see how much your insurance covers and try to plan ahead for that. But you can always do payment plans. Hospitals are very good about payment plans. And if you got to pay $100 a month forever on it, I mean, that might be something that you have to do. But I would really say look into home birth, because like I said, 95% of women don't need a medical birth and can probably have a midwife and or a doctor come to their home far cheaper. You could have a doula. There's like a ton of different options for that. But we've turned it into a medical thing that costs $20,000 to give birth. And they try to make you stay in the hospital for 2 or 3 days after. And that's not always necessary either, more often than not.